Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hey. Welcome everyone to the Partnerships for Profit podcast. I am your host today, Macy J, and I'm joined with an amazing man here. We have Ben Schenk here with us today on the podcast. We want to give him just a warm round of applause here for Ben. So before we kick things off, I want to give you guys a little introduction about Ben. So Ben is a powerhouse. He's a powerhouse trial attorney and co-founder of the Schenk Law Firm, where he specializes in catastrophic personal injury, wrongful death, mass torts, and complex business litigation. But what I'm really excited to learn more about Ben here today is that he's a thespian. He has totally some performance background with him here today. So welcome in, Ben. How are you feeling?
Macy, that was the most incredible introduction I could have possibly asked for. So I am amazing. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so impressed with your bio. There's so much to unpack here today. So I'm really excited to be sitting down here with you and to just dive into who Ben is and learn more about who you are and just share with the world your message. And let's have some fun here today. Are you feeling like you're ready?
I'm always ready.
Okay.
Talking about myself? Oh my God, are you kidding me?
He said, I don't get ready. I stay ready. So let's do it then. So this first little round, I call it would you rather, because I like to
love a would you rather.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. So since you have a theater background, let's make this movie cinema themed. I've got my this or that book because I stay ready too, Ben. I stay ready too. Okay. So here we go. Would you rather choose comedy movies or a horror film?
That's such an easy answer for me. It's definitely not horror because I'm a total scaredy cat. It's comedy, but I'll also say I'll kind of augment that and even reject the premise of the question a little bit. It's going to be a rom-com for me. It's always a rom-com. I'm a sucker for a rom-com. Yeah.
What's your favorite rom-com?
Wow. How to Lose a Guy. What's the one with Matthew McConaughey and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? I love that.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days?
Made in Manhattan. We got Made in Manhattan with J-Lo and Ralph Fiennes. Classic. Just I'm not going to say they don't make them like they used to. But I don't think they make them like they used to, but I could just pop any of those in.
Anything that's from like the early 2000s, you can definitely tap me in for that. Okay.
Here's actually an amazing distillation. When I was like 6, I went. My mom and her friend took my friend and me to the movies when people still went to the movies, and my friend and I went into the Batman movie, and they went into You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and within 10 minutes, I was out of the Batman movie and in You've Got Mail with my mom and her friend. That's like
he said, "Bye, Batman. I gotta go see rom-com right fast."
Yeah.
I love it, but I love to go to the movies. I love a good movie theater popcorn vibe.
Man.
Okay.
Oh man.
So we got into the rom-com. What about animated movies or live action?
Again, I love an animated film. I tried watching it's that Pixar film. I was on an airplane.
Ooh, I love Pixar.
It's the one that's based in Mexico.
Huh.
Anyways, I'm a
I
big
don't know why I'm
Pixar
thinking about Toy
fan.
Story, but that's not based in Mexico.
Studio Ghibli, Spirited Away,
Oh.
anime. It's some of the best artistry, I
Yes.
think, in that we have. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely animation over live action for me.
Me too. I always love a good old like Disney princess movie that's like animated, because I always tell people, I'm like, the live action, I could go for 2D.
Yeah.
Well, I think now we've kind of warmed it up a little bit. We've gotten
Okay, so you know everything about me.
I know
You
your
see
life
me.
story.
Yeah.
We've gotten into rom-com, we've gotten into animation, but we're going to talk more about the theater side for you here today. So since you are this powerhouse trial attorney, I want to know how you're able to merge your background with theater in the courtroom. How are you able to merge that to your advantage?
Well, to me, it's not necessarily merging.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way I am, right?
Ooh.
I think being a trial lawyer, we are storytellers for our clients, especially on the plaintiff side, right? It's not just a logical connection of the facts to the
Right.
law, talking about liability, causation, damages. It's this is my client. These are step in the shoes of my client, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a huge emotional component,
Definitely,
from where I stand, to be able to help other humans, jurors, step into those shoes, right? To understand a day in the life of a client who is harmed or injured or wronged.
Right. Yeah.
So in that sense, you're kind of like an emotional DJ, right? You know how a DJ kind of there's a build up, and then there's a beat, there's a drop, right?
Yes.
Being able to hold a juror's attention, and you could be in it. Think about it. You're sitting in a courtroom for hours on end. You can easy to zone out.
Yeah, you can get
bored.
bored.
Make it interesting. You got to make it compelling. And so by just telling a compelling story, I think the connection to theater is similar. Now with theater, you're delivering lines, and you got to make it. The lines are the same every single night, right? Exactly. The challenge for the actor is to make it those same lines interesting night after night, even though they're the same, because you got a different audience. You got to make it seem like you have to make it feel relevant and new for them. What the difference in a courtroom is, you're not just the trial lawyer is not just the actor. They're the actor. They're to a certain extent, writer, producer, director, right? And it's not scripted. So it requires thinking, what evidence came in, what evidence you have to respond on your feet while doing all of those things that an actor does. So I would say, this is a long-winded way of answering your question, but it's similar, but it's so much more involved.
I completely agree with that, because like you said, an actor, you're just saying lines, but if you're in a courtroom, like you said, you got evidence, you've got to figure out a way to have that improv in there just in case anything switches up last minute. And then you're writing out, okay, how do I want to tell this story for the jurors to understand? How can they walk in the shoes of my client? How can I do that? So it's a lot more depth there. And I can already tell just by the way that you answer your questions with the dramatic pauses. And I know that you're not like just doing it for a dramatic,
pause is the most important. Pause is the most important technique that a storyteller can utilize.
For sure, because I'm drawn in.
Right. And also tone, right? A
Mhm.
lot of people tell stories and they'll kind of end on a high-pitched note.
Yes.
The ability to pause and go down, right? Like what I'm doing,
Yes.
I know this is kind of meta right now, but these are things I don't think about as much because it's almost like mental,
You're used to it. You do it all
I'm
the
used to
all the
it,
time. Mhm.
but those are things I think about all the time. So I'm glad you pointed out pause, right?
Yes, yes.
It's critical.
I
For any trial lawyer, you know, biz entrepreneur,
Mhm.
teacher, anyone, because we're all selling and we're all looking for people to buy into whatever we're selling, attention, right?
Totally.
To be able to
Absolutely.
communicate effectively, these are, I think, universal principles.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think about even just being a host, just doing
Right.
that. I was definitely into theater, and I'm like, I did not know that you could be a performer without having to sing or dance. You could perform every day and communicate and sell yourself just being who you are. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that because this can apply to many different industries. And so I just wanted to start off with that because I was like, oh my gosh, we got a theater nerd in here. I
We
really
got a
want to
theater kid. We got one. We got another one of those. Yep.
yes. So let's talk about, your career and just in totality. You didn't always start off in just being an attorney. You started off in finance and then you transitioned into doing being an attorney. So how did that transition happen for you? What made that change happen?
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about my career journey. Well, I grew up with trial law as part of my understanding of the world. My dad, Fred, who is also my law partner,
Mhm.
has practiced plaintiffs, catastrophic injury, mass tort law for 46 years.
Wow.
We would have dinner as a family 5 nights a week,
Mhm.
and we would talk about the stories, his clients, the stories behind his cases.
Mhm.
So I had a front row seat into that world growing up.
Yeah.
But I didn't. He never pushed me into practicing
Mhm.
law, and it was not preordained. So when I went to college, uh, I studied government, really with an emphasis in political philosophy and
Mhm.
theater. And while I was there was this really quirky hedge fund that
Mhm.
recruited at 3 schools, and my college, Dartmouth, was one of them. And it was I remember the interview. It was, so the hedge fund is Bridgewater Associates,
Okay.
founded by Ray Dalio, largest hedge fund in the world. And a lot of the kind of corporate on-campus recruiting, people would Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley,
Right.
Bain, McKinsey, people would come up to the interviews dressed in suits, and they'd have these, I don't know, technical questions. How many jelly beans can you fit into? Right? What are these logic puzzles? But
Mhm.
Bridgewater's first interview was come with a philosophical question and be prepared to debate it amongst your peers. And I just
Ooh.
found that fascinating,
Uh-huh.
because it's how I oriented with my friends in college. One thing
Debating.
led to another, and I got an internship there, loved it, and ended up working at Bridgewater for 3 years.
Mhm.
So that's how I got into why they recruited a government theater person to work at a hedge fund. Well, they believe that it's conceptual thinking ability that matters,
Oh,
especially early on in one's career. It
right.
was some of the best training I ever received.
Wow.
Um, and so that's how I got involved in finance. And then I wanted to move back to San Diego. I always wanted to be back here where I'm from. But I got involved in and living in New York, I was a part of the urbanism of right. And so I thought, yeah, and I love that. And I thought, cities just density and urbanization is inevitable. Those are the trends and where we're moving. And so I wanted to take a part in San Diego's urbanization. I grew up in the suburbs,
right.
And now I live in the city. And so I knew I wanted to come back to San Diego. I didn't know exactly how. But my experience in finance, I started investing in real estate in San Diego.
Wow!
Started a company doing that, and still run that. And in fact, that's why I went to law school. It wasn't to practice law. It wasn't to learn civil litigation. It was to take as many tax classes as I could.
So, okay, taking tax classes.
Right. University of San Diego is one of the best tax programs in the country. And I got basically a full ride scholarship. And I thought, you know what?
Wow.
Now's the time. I'm in my late 20s that this, makes sense. And because real estate is such a tax intensive asset class. So I went to law school. And then COVID happened.
Yep.
And I wasn't intending on taking the bar. I graduated law school in 2020. And I thought, I could study for this for 6 weeks, the bar.
Right.
And so I took the bar, passed. And, at that point, I'm about 30 years old, give or take. And I just started thinking about my relationship with my dad. And I read an ESPN article about LeBron James and Bronny Jr. And how all they wanted to do was play on the same court together.
Oh, yeah, that is so true.
I'm not comparing my dad to LeBron James or myself to Bronny Jr., but he is a master of his craft. He's earned that mastery. And I started thinking about how do I want to contribute to the world? What do I also personally, what do I want out of a career? And the obtaining mastery of a craft was right up there. And so that's when I decided, okay, I have the law license. I have this privilege, of learning from a master, and it happens to be my own dad. And so that's when I decided, okay. Oh, and I'm naturally a theatrical person, and what I do representing clients is a financial negotiation. It's deal making, it's problem solving, right? And I already intuitively have that from the transactional side of the finance and my real estate background, which I love.
Exactly.
So I'm using so much surface area in my brain, which is just fun for me, right?
Yes.
So that was the decision. That's how I got to starting practice. I actually apprenticed with another trial lawyer for a year and a half before working with my dad, because I wanted to, I wanted to, I also I didn't want to have a false positive or a false negative. Just by working with my dad, I wanted to really feel it on my own, and so that was an amazing experience. And then that's when my dad and I decided to launch our own firm together. Yeah.
That is so powerful. That's so powerful just because you brought up LeBron James and Bronny James, and you're thinking about, wow, he really did just have this moment where he's on the court with his dad. And it's the fact that you leveraged your background both in finance and theater, and then you tapped into the real estate a little bit. You're like, okay, I really want to get to be a master of your craft. And I feel like that's so inspiring, because that's what motivates me. I want to be the best at what it is that I do. And there are so many like young attorneys that are like, okay, I'm trying to find my purpose in this world. I've done a lot of different things. How can I solidify myself? And I'm so glad that you talked about mastering your craft, because being an attorney, period, like it's really hard. Like it's not, I know that you told yourself that you could do it, but like it's intimidating to just take the bar. It takes people several times to get to that point.
When you take on the responsibility of being an advocate for a client, you are taking on oftentimes, and especially in what we do with wrongful death and catastrophic injury. I mean, our clients have a lot at stake, right?
They do.
And so that is a deep responsibility. And with those cases often come, a series of, it's like exploring a minefield. And sometimes you know where the mines are, but oftentimes one doesn't know where the mines are. And so it's this navigation of known and unknown issues that one may or may not be aware of, but is expected to know and has to know in order to successfully work up their case and potentially litigate their case.
Right.
I am so inspired by people like my dad who have navigated that minefield over decades. I'm just a couple years in, and have been drinking out of a fire hose, and it's been amazing. But it is hard work.
Oh, yes. I mean, like you said, you've been kind of getting your feet wet for the past couple of years. And then the fact that you have your dad to kind of ask questions and see his perspective, because he's navigated through so many complex cases. And that actually just brings me to my next point, because I would actually like to know what can you walk us through what it takes to land a $5 million settlement in a wrongful death case? So I know that you have been dealing with different cases and things like that, but what does it take to get that type of settlement?
Well, first I'd say there's no one size fits. Every case is different, right? Every case has different facts, different potentially different venues, right?
Yes.
One, I think it really helps to understand who's writing the checks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The defense counsel is writing the checks on behalf of their client, oftentimes an insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And with that comes a choice. And the choice is for a plaintiff's lawyer, how do I orient to my counterparty?
Mm-hmm.
We are in the civil justice system. We are in an adversarial system. We butt heads.
Right.
That's how it's structured. It's, and so do I treat my counterpart as an adversary, or do I treat them as a partner?
Ooh.
And for me, the decision has always been to treat my counterparties as partners. They write my checks. They write my clients' checks.
That's true. And you think that you would have to like argue or like go back and forth, and it has to be this brawl, but it's really not.
I'm not saying there aren't times where there will be differences in terms of what information are a huge part of working up a case, especially a case, wrongful death cases, arguing over what materials need to be disclosed in discovery, right? What questions need to be answered in deposition.
Yes.
And you're not doing your job as a plaintiff lawyer if the other side thinks you're just the most congenial person, right? That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But being a human with the other person getting to know them, developing a rapport, right? Helping them understand your side of the case, making it clear for them so that they can go to their client and explain, not hiding the ball, not hiding the facts, not saying, oh, we'll see you in court, and just that doesn't help anyone. And so I would say that is a broadly applicable approach that has served me well and did serve me well in that settlement, because I developed a great rapport with my opposing counsel. We were able to exchange information very freely, and that helped us resolve the case. It was a highly contested case on liability, and I think because of those relationships, there was a lot of mutual respect. And that's the number one thing I could say.
I've literally heard.
There's a second thing. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. No. I was literally just saying I'm inspired by the fact that you kind of collaborate with the other side and you lay it all on the table. And I just haven't heard that perspective before. But go ahead. What else would you like to add?
I would encourage any attorney on the plaintiff's side, and I hear this a lot, especially among my younger peers. They get intimidated by the language of finance.
Oh, okay.
And the client for a defense company, for a defense attorney, again, is almost always an insurance carrier or multiple insurance carriers if there are layers of coverage.
Right.
They're in the business of finance.
They are.
They're in the business of pooling risk, right?
Exactly.
And so the ability for a plaintiff's trial lawyer to not only overcome what may seem daunting, numbers, not letters, right? That's why a lot of people choose to go to law school. But really, and the language of finance isn't necessarily numbers, right? It can be conceptual as well. I mean, obviously at a certain level, it's not. But being able to speak in terms of probabilistic outcomes at trial and expected value, right? These are financial terms applied to likely case outcomes. It makes negotiating with an insurance company so much easier because you're speaking their language, as opposed to telling. Maybe the inclination would be to tell an emotional story to an insurance carrier. While valid and important, I think that is more relevant in front of a jury, right?
Correct.
That takes into account that human component. But an insurance carrier, they want to know what their exposure is and how to think probabilistically in terms of that. And so I think understanding the language of finance and being comfortable enough to lead with that when negotiating settlements can really differentiate a plaintiff's attorney.
That is so powerful. I'm thinking like how you say, if someone is speaking the language of like logistics and numbers, you can't really speak a powerful emotional story to them because that's not like the primary goal. So you have to like level with them in their language for it to make sense.
Right. The distillation of all of this is just know your audience, right?
Yeah. That's literally what it is, because that's just leveling with them so that you get the best outcome. And I like that you said that, because sometimes you might be communicating in one way and they're not communicating on the same frequency as you. So like you said, kind of collaborating with the other side, but then also being able to use that financial language to your advantage, even if you're not the strongest in it. So maybe that could be like a development area for yourself if you want to become a stronger attorney.
Let's double click into development area. Khan Academy. There are. This doesn't require an MBA, right?
Yeah.
There are so many free resources to learn. Concepts like expected value, present value, right? Like it's available.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much from you already. Like, I'm so excited. Like, so now that we have talked about, okay, so this is how we can get to a place where we have some really great settlements for your clients and things like that. So now I want to know, how do you stay grounded and energized when you're working through so many different worlds? How do you find time to stay grounded and to keep your energy levels up so that you show up your best for your clients?
Sorry, Macy. I caught the last end. You talking about? I thought you were talking about like how do I stay mentally
grounded? Yeah, how do you stay grounded and energized when you're dedicating so much energy to all of these different cases? What advice would you have for other young attorneys that are maybe burnt out a little bit, and they want to be able to show up their best for their clients?
Well, candidly, I'm most motivated when I have the correct incentives. I think we all are.
Yes.
And so I would encourage any attorney to figure out what are those incentives that make the return on headache, right?
Return on headache.
ROH.
Yeah.
And if those incentives aren't serving you, figure out what changes need to be made in order for that to happen. And that could occur over a period of time. That could say, okay, that could be, okay, so I'm in my current job for the next 3 years to soak everything up. And then I'll either move to a different firm with better incentives, or I'll start my own thing. But I really believe that incentives dictate that energy is downstream of incentives, if that makes sense.
That's true.
Right?
It's true.
And so for me, I can work the latest hours because I've structured things such that, I'm at my own firm. I have the right incentives. I'm 35. It's taken me a long time but it's taken me time to get there. Right.
Yeah. It's valuable time.
But it's really helpful for me. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I feel like a lot of people, they might be a little bit, hesitant to say, I'm driven by incentive. Like, if it's worth if the dollars are there, I'm gonna, show up and do my best, and I think that goes to show how much of a high performer you want to be. It's not only just about the incentive, but that's obviously a driving factor, but it's like, okay, I want to show up and be the best for my client and represent them in the best way too. So a lot of this part of the job, there's a lot of empathy there. Like, you have to have empathy to do well. How did you learn how to navigate the empathy and not have that attached to your own energy? Because I'm sure some of these cases are really sad. And so what keeps you motivated when you see these cases like this?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. The first case I ever worked on as a plaintiff's trial lawyer was the wrongful death case, in which where we settled for $5 million.
And that was your first case?
That was the first case.
Wow.
And I'm watching police body cam footage. So there was a father and son. The father, they just spent the day surfing in LA, and the father, who's also a lawyer, he passed away in the collision. Was also a theater. He studied theater.
Oh, no.
And so there are these parallels that I'm drawing, and I'm connected to this person, and his son is a teenager, and he's in the back of the car. And I'm watching this body cam footage, and the firefighters are extracting the son with the jaws of life from this there was a drunk driver who drove the wrong way.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm watching that footage, and then I'm watching the interview of the driver in the hospital room. They have no idea what's happened, and I just broke down.
Oh yeah,
I just lost it, and I just thought, and I can handle gore, I can handle the stuff that may make other people's stomachs churn with the blood and all of that. Right. The emotion there was something I'd never handled before.
Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah.
And I thought, is every case like this? Am I gonna? And so very quickly, I sought counsel, advice from my boss, from my dad, from other people. And
yeah, you have to.
You are the client's advocate, but you are not the client, right? And so making sure that you're just always aware of your role.
You're the advocate.
You're the advocate. And I think really effective trial lawyers can get so close. There's a line there. It's not always clear where that is, right? But they can get so close to that line, and
it's hard to separate it.
But the best ones are able to do that, but they're able to get so close that they can feel the emotions without it taking a personal toll.
Right, without it taking them over, literally.
And so I think having that inclination, though, to allow oneself to become emotional over those things it's the right disposition.
Oh yeah. It's a good thing to feel those feelings. It's not bad at all. But learning to get so close to the line, but then knowing like this is my role, and I'm not the person, but I'm their advocate.
Yeah.
Wow. That was just so powerful. I'm really glad that you shared that story, just because we don't get to hear these kinds of stories. We don't see this side of what this looks like when you go to trial, and when accidents happen, you hear about the accidents, but you don't actually hear about the details. And when you begin to like envision yourself, in the shoes of someone else, it literally is like, how are they doing this? How are attorneys being able to put those types of burdens on their backs for the good of other people? So I just want to say thank you for all that you were doing for other people, because it does not go unnoticed whatsoever. And, so
we're not unique. I mean, we have a unique role in society, but this applies to, there are social workers, and I mean, there are so many other professions, doctors that have to deal with trauma every single day. So it's when you're in the business of serving others, and especially with such trauma, it's
right. I completely agree. Yeah, no, my brother just finished up with residency and to be an OBGYN, and he's delivering babies, and sometimes babies are not, they don't come out alive. And so dealing with that every single day, and the trauma that comes with it, I'm like, are you okay? Like, I'm checking in on him, because I'm sure that it's so emotionally, like, it's almost desensitizing because you see it happen so often.
And that's the challenge. That's the challenge, right? That's why I say I think you want to get close to that line. The corollary to that is to become so jaded or desensitized to lose all sense of that emotion, where it just becomes a dollars and cents conversation. It just becomes that kind of financial extraction. Yeah, that's where that's the opposite risk.
That's true. You become so numb to it all that you don't feel anything anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't really relate. And so that, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think that there's the opposite side to it, where you're so emotional that you can't separate it. But then there's the other side where you can't even feel anything. You've become so desensitized. You can't relate to anybody anymore. And that can be dangerous too. Oh my gosh. I'm just like
finding the mean, finding that middle ground.
the middle ground and being able to take care of yourself in the process. So what do you do, at this day to day? What types of ways do you care for yourself being in such an intense work environment?
Well, I just ran my first marathon.
Hey, yeah.
I finished in 3 hours and 28
oh my God.
28 minutes, which was just under 8 minutes a mile.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm really proud of that.
You should be. Oh yeah. I've never ran a marathon at all.
And I never ran until a year and a half ago. One of my best friends from college, who's a complete physical psychopath, said, for my bachelor party, we're doing an Ironman. And I led the charge to friends to counter that and say, you're crazy. Down, I also hedged and said, well, if enough people agree to do this crazy thing, I don't want to be, out of shape for it. And so that's why
probably train.
Right. So I should probably start doing something.
Yeah.
And so I started running. I think staying physically fit it just kind of
gets that relief.
It's table stakes, right? That's not anything new. Drawing for me, it's drawing energy outside of work. It's having a full life. It's being involved in a community, right? Though if work becomes the whole thing, and it's very easy, I don't get this right all the time, but then it's inevitable that it will consume you, and also the quality of ideas one gets from not just being in the thing all the time, but from drawing laterally from other sources, other inspiration, that's where creativity comes from.
Oh, right? Totally.
Drawing those lateral connections. So whether that means, joining a board of a civic institution in a city and meeting other leaders, in your community. I'm a big.
You got to get outside.
You got to get outside and touch the grass.
Yeah, touch grass. Absolutely. I feel like you said, you could be consumed by this whole thing, but just being able to draw energy, ideas from other people, getting active, I think that helps keep you grounded, being able to release some of that energy and find some ways to be creative. You still have the little theater nerd that's in there that wants to come out from time to time.
I'm going to Streetcar Named Desire, next week. I'm going to play. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, I'm loving the fact that you take the time to still go and see some of these shows. Like that is who you are. It's not what you do, it's who you are. Kind of like what you said.
I am a trial attorney. That is not who I am.
That's just what you do.
It's a part of who I am, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. This has been so, just sitting, I could talk with you for hours if I wanted to. But we have reached towards the end of our episode here. But I want to give you the floor to share one thing with the audience, anything inspirational, any nuggets of wisdom to give to people who want to get into this industry, who are on social media. What words would you give to them to encourage them to keep going?
Anything that's worth doing is going to take 10 years at a minimum.
To
achieve some semblance of success, and success should be defined. Right? Have a very clear sense of what success will ultimately look like for you. I started 4 businesses before practicing law. Right. One of which, right. And so it took me a while to define success, but and that's really hard. That is so hard to do. Setting a goal, understanding what it is one wants.
Yes.
But the more deliberate one can be about that internal conversation, combined with the patience of knowing that success is not overnight, it will take 10 years. I think that can give people a sense of calm as it relates to, okay, I'm starting out on this journey, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm just so resonating with your message here because, like you said, it takes about 10 years. So you think about like the 10,000 hour rule to achieve that mastery. And like you said, you really value the importance of mastery in any craft. And so 10 years is really, a good amount of time to get to that 10,000 hour rule.
And so if you're defining success, do you want to do something for 10 years? Is this
there
the
you go?
Thing you want to be doing for 10 years? That's such an important question.
Yes. Can you stick to it for 10 years and can you still enjoy it and love it? And then you're becoming more of a master as you continue to go on. And this can, not even if you just want to be an attorney, if you want to go be an artist, go ahead, do that, for 10 years, can you stick to it? I'm so thankful for you here today, Ben.
Thank you for letting me share whatever nuggets of wisdom or just thoughts that this is really, really special.
Absolutely. You have been amazing on this episode. I am just mind blown by how just inspiring you are to me. And it's going to be so amazing when we share this with the world. So thank you so much, Ben, for being here with us. That's the end of the episode here, folks. We will see you next time on Partnerships for Profit. I am your girl, Macy J. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.